Have you ever stood at a crossroads and felt frozen? You know the feeling. Your mind races, you imagine every possible outcome, and still you can't move. Today, we're going to change that. Welcome to BetterSelf. This channel helps you grow and learn English at the same time. Each video gives clear, practical advice delivered in simple language. You get better decisions and better English, one step at a time. In this video, I will give you a complete framework for making decisions with confidence. This method will help you move faster, reduce regret, and learn from what happens. I will share stories, examples, simple tools, and mental habits you can use immediately. Listen carefully and practice the short prompts inside each chapter. I see. Over time, making choices will feel less risky and more natural. We begin by understanding why deciding is hard. Then we learn how to decide what truly matters, how to shape the problem, how to limit time and information, and how to test choices safely. You will also learn how to choose without perfectionism, how to commit, and how to build decision-making confidence for the long run. Each chapter is a step in a reliable, human-friendly system. Ready? Let's begin. Chapter 1. Why we struggle to decide it. Decision-making feels difficult for a few clear reasons, but the first and most important is that we care. The decisions that keep us up at night are usually the ones that matter. When stakes rise, our imagination fills with possibilities. We picture the best possible outcome and the worst possible outcome, and then we try to protect ourselves. This is natural. But caring hard can produce two problems: paralysis and noise. Paralysis happens when we overvalue avoiding the worst outcome more than we value making progress. Imagine a friend who wants to change careers. She thinks, if I leave now and fail, I will lose money, status, and time. This fear grows until she cannot take any step at all. The other problem, noise, is when too much information and too many opinions create confusion. The internet, colleagues, family, and our own past experiences all push in different directions. Every new article, statistic, or anecdote can make a once clear choice foggy. The second big reason we struggle is a mismatch between what we think we want and what we truly value. Many choices have hidden trade-offs. Picking the highest-paying job may cost you evenings and family time. Choosing a safe relationship may cost you excitement or personal growth. When our values are unclear, every option looks equally important, and every small con is a crisis. The clarity you need is not about choosing the perfect path. It's about understanding what you will happily trade for what you will not trade. Third, we confuse certainty with security. We act as if more data always equals better decisions. But often, more data gives us more false precision. We feel safer when calculations look thorough, yet numbers do not capture human life. The famous example is executives who delay product launches because they want one more test, while competitors move forward and learn faster. The comfort of statistics can be a trap if it delays action indefinitely. Finally, decision anxiety grows because we fear regret. We imagine ourselves looking back with disappointment and saying, I should have known. But regret is often smaller than we expect and fades faster than we imagine. The key is not to avoid regret completely. That is impossible, but to lower its weight. When you set clear values and create guardrails that limit downside, regret has less power to immobilize you. Let's look at a story. Jeff Bezos built a habit he calls the regret minimization framework. When he decided to leave a stable job and start Amazon, he imagined himself at age 80, looking back. He asked, will I regret not trying? That question moved the decision from fear to perspective. It did not guarantee success, but it reduced paralysis. There is another story from a friend of mine who was choosing whether to move to a new city. He created a simple list of what mattered: proximity to family, career growth, and weather. Once he ranked these values, options dropped away. The city that best matched his top values became obvious. He still had doubts, but he no longer felt crushed by indecision. So what should you do when you feel stuck? Start with a short practice. Pause and name the real fear. Is it loss of money, social standing, comfort, or self-image? Then ask what you would do if the fear were smaller. Naming the fear takes its power away. Next, ask what trade-offs you are unwilling to make. Trade-offs are where real choices live. Finally, imagine your life at 80. Which decision will you most regret not trying? This perspective helps you see whether fear is blocking a worthwhile risk or protecting you from an important cost. By the end of this chapter, understand 3 simple truths. Caring makes choices meaningful, but caring can paralyze. Values reveal trade-offs and simplify the decision, and regret is manageable when you set perspective and limits. Practice naming fears and trade-offs for a week before major decisions. The habit will reveal patterns and make big choices feel smaller and surer. In the next chapter, we will turn values into a tool you can use whenever you must choose. Chapter 2. Decide what matters, values and trade-offs. When we talk about values, we do not mean vague slogans. We mean clear priorities that guide daily choices. Values are helpful because every decision includes trade-offs, and trade-offs become easier when you have a compass. Think of values as a map you can consult when the terrain gets confusing. Without this map, you wander. Start by naming your top 3 values. Keep them specific and personal. Security, creativity, and connection are real values, but we can give them active meaning. Security might mean steady income and emergency savings. Creativity might mean time each week to build new projects. Connection might mean dinner with family 5 nights a week. The more concrete, the more helpful these values become. Let me tell you a story about a teacher named Anna. She faced a classic dilemma. Should she accept a promotion that paid more but required long commutes and weekend work? Anna listed her values and found that the 2 strongest were family time and consistent, calm schedule. Money was important, but it was third. When she looked at the promotion through these values, the answer was clear. She turned it down with peace. That decision did not stop her growth. It simply aligned growth with what mattered most. Values also help in professional choices. Consider a startup founder choosing between 2 investors. One investor offered better terms, but wanted full control and rapid growth. The other offered a slower path, but respected the founder's vision. The founder's top values were product integrity and long-term mission. He chose the second investor. The decision may have slowed short-term gains, but it kept the company aligned with its original purpose. Using values does not mean you are rigid. Values are a guide, not a prison. They allow smart trade-offs. For example, if your primary value is adventure and your secondary value is financial stability, you might choose a lower-paying job that offers travel and save a larger emergency fund. You are making a conscious swap instead of letting fear or habit decide for you. Here's a practical way to use values when choosing. Write your top 3 values in 1 sentence. Make it short and direct, like I value a calm home life, steady income, and personal creativity. When a choice appears, read that sentence aloud. Ask how each option aligns with the sentence. Score them quickly in your head. This gives you speed and clarity. A real exercise that helps is a simple trade-off list. Pick a decision. At the top of a page, write the option you favor and the option you fear. Under each, list what you would gain and what you would lose. Use your values as headers for gains and losses. This forces you to name the trade-offs and makes it easier to choose. We can also learn from historical examples. Think of J.K. Rowling. She valued creative freedom and the ability to write without corporate pressure. Early in her career, she lived with financial uncertainty. She chose to prioritize the creative value, which eventually led to massive rewards. Her story reminds us that the short-term pain of valuing something different can result in long-term fulfillment. On the other hand, values can change, and that is okay. A season in life may require different priorities. When you reevaluate, be honest. Ask, what is non-negotiable now? What can flex? Changing values is not failure, it is adaptation. By the end of this chapter, your goal is to have a short, clear value sentence and a habit of using it in decisions. For a week, each time you face a small choice, what to eat, whether to accept a meeting, which article to read, check your value sentence. See how quickly it helps you filter options. This practice will strengthen your decision-making muscles and make bigger choices smoother. In the next chapter, we will learn how to frame choices so your values work for you instead of against you. Chapter 3. Frame the choice. Simplify and narrow options. Framing is the art of shaping a question so the answer becomes clearer. Often, decisions feel overwhelming because they are framed too broadly. What should I do with my life? Is a useful but paralyzing question. It is better to ask sharper, narrower questions. When you frame well, you reduce options to those that matter and make comparisons easier. Start with constraints. Constraints are not limits. They are helpful fences that focus creativity. When building a house, constraints decide where the kitchen goes and how big windows can be. For decisions, constraints might be time, money, values, or skill. A clear example is someone choosing a weekend activity. If your constraint is budget under $20, you immediately narrow the field. The mental work of choosing becomes light. A useful reframing technique is to ask, what decision will move me toward my values in the next 90 days? This short horizon transforms a global life question into an actionable plan. You can test an idea in 90 days and then decide again. The 90-day frame reduces fear because it makes the choice reversible and experimental. Let me share a story about two entrepreneurs, Mark and Lena. Mark framed his decision as, should I quit my job and build my app full-time? Lena framed her decision as, can I create a viable prototype in 3 months with minimal financial risk? Mark saw only the binary, security or entrepreneurship. Lena saw a test. She built a simple prototype with a part-time effort, validated it, and then made a choice based on real data. Her framing made the path forward practical and low risk. Another helpful framing method is to separate directional from critical decisions. Directional decisions move you along a path. They are not final. Choosing to learn a new skill or to start a small side project are directional. Critical decisions have lasting consequences like selling a business or moving continents. For directional choices, favor speed. For critical choices, take more time and gather evidence. This mental distinction allows you to act quickly when the cost is low and carefully when the stakes are high. You can also frame decisions as a series of binary choices instead of one complex question. If you are choosing a career path, break it down. Choose an industry, then a role, then a company size, then a location. Each step reduces complexity. You can take a small action at each binary step. This is the one small yes approach. It keeps momentum and reduces fear because each yes is reversible. Analogies help too. Think of decision-making like cooking a complex dish. You do not decide every ingredient at once. You start with the base, the main flavor, then add spices, test, and adjust. Good chefs taste along the way. Your decision process should taste as you go. The base is your values. The spices are short-term experiments. A powerful test to reframe big choices is the 5-minute rule. Can you explain the core of your decision and the main trade-offs in 5 minutes? If you cannot, your frame is probably too broad. Practice explaining major decisions aloud in one short paragraph. This exercise helps you see where the real questions are and cuts through noise. Finally, beware of the false choice. When options appear mutually exclusive, but are not. Sometimes you create an either-or in your mind because it is simpler. Look for hybrid solutions. For example, you might think you must choose between a secure job and learning a new skill. But you could keep the job while dedicating specific evenings to learning. Framing helps you spot these creative blends. Finish this chapter by practicing a framing exercise for a current decision. Write one sentence that narrows the decision to a 90-day experiment or a binary next step. Keep the sentence short and testable. Use it to guide your next action. When you practice framing regularly, choices become clearer and confidence grows naturally. In the next chapter, we will look at how to limit information and time so you don't drown in analysis. Chapter 4. Limit time and information. Avoid paralysis by analysis. We live in an age of constant information. Every choice invites 1,000 articles, countless reviews, and endless advice. While information can help, too much of it often leads to paralysis. The key is not to gather all the information possible. It is to gather useful, relevant information and then decide. Limiting time and information is a skill. It protects your attention and lets you act. Start by setting a deadline for decisions. A deadline creates pressure in a healthy way. When I say deadline, I mean a real one. A date and time when you will choose. Psychologists call this a commitment device. When you give yourself a limit, your brain focuses on what matters. The placebo of infinite time is dangerous. It tricks you into believing you will get clarity if you only wait a little longer. Usually, that clarity never comes. Deadlines come in different sizes. For small decisions, use short deadlines. 5 minutes to choose a route. 30 minutes to pick a restaurant. For bigger but reversible choices, set a few days or a week. For major life choices, you might allow a month or a quarter of careful thought. The important part is to set a limit that matches the cost of the decision. If the cost is low, the deadline should be short. If the cost is high, give yourself more time, but still a cap. Next, limit sources of information. Choose 1 or 2 trusted sources and stop there. If you seek advice, pick a small group of people who understand your values and context. Too many opinions create conflict and self-doubt. A story from a friend shows how harmful too much data can be. She wanted to buy a new camera. She read dozens of reviews, watched hours of videos, and still felt uncertain. Finally, she asked a single photographer she admired, got a clear answer, and bought the camera. The relief of a single trusted voice was immediate. Use the 80-20 rule for information. Find the 20% of information that will answer 80% of your questions. For most career decisions, this might mean talking to 2 people who do the job, watching 1 hour of interviews, and reviewing basic salary data. This level of information often reveals the practical reality faster than a week of deep research. There is also the danger of decision hygiene being confused with procrastination hygiene. Decision hygiene, gathering relevant facts, checking your values, framing the problem, is good. Procrastination disguised as research is not. You can spot the difference by asking, am I learning something new? Or am I avoiding the discomfort of choosing? If the latter, shorten the time you allow for further research. Another useful technique is the minimum viable decision. When the stakes are uncertain, choose the smallest commitment that moves you forward and is reversible. If you are unsure about changing jobs, apply for 2 roles and interview. If you are unsure about a new relationship, plan 3 dates before you decide on exclusivity. Small, reversible commitments reduce the cost of being wrong and speed up learning. Consider real-world examples. When Elon Musk decides on a design change at SpaceX or Tesla, teams often present compact summaries with the key facts and recommended choices. They do not drown in endless reports. Clear summaries force the essential data to the surface. You can do the same for personal choices. Prepare a 1-page summary, the decision, 3 key facts, and a recommended choice. Then set a deadline to act. Emotional limits are important too. If you are tired, angry, or overly excited, your decision quality drops. Do not make major choices when sleep-deprived or emotionally raw. Simple self-care. A good night's sleep and a calm morning can transform the clarity of your judgment. Finish this chapter with a small practice. Pick a minor decision you have been postponing. Give yourself a deadline, 30 minutes, 24 hours, or 3 days depending on cost. Limit your information sources to 2 trusted places. Decide. Notice how the deadline changes your energy and confidence. Over time, these small practices build your ability to choose under realistic constraints. In the next chapter, we will practice generating options without getting overwhelmed. Chapter 5. Generate options creatively. Widen without overwhelm. Generating options is both liberating and dangerous. It is liberating because more options can reveal new paths. It is dangerous because too many options can freeze you. The trick is to intentionally expand possibilities, then narrow them with your values and constraints. Creativity in options is a muscle you can practice. When you train it, you discover solutions you did not imagine before. Begin with a brainstorming ritual. Set a short time limit, 10 to 20 minutes, and write every possible option, even silly ones. The goal at this stage is quantity, not quality. Silly options often lead to useful ones because they break habitual thinking. For instance, a client once wanted to increase income without losing family time. His initial ideas were obvious. Ask for a raise, change jobs, work more hours. A timed brainstorm forced him to include odd but effective ideas. Teach a weekend workshop, sell teaching templates, create a short online course. Those solutions proved to be the most sustainable. Use prompts to widen thinking. Ask, what would I do if money were no object? Or, what would an expert in another field suggest? Or imagine advice from a friend with opposite values. These prompts break mental ruts and help you see hybrid solutions. The aim is not perfection, it is novelty. Another way to expand options is to learn from adjacent problems. If you are stuck choosing a job, look at how people choose mentors, hobbies, or volunteer roles and apply those patterns. Often, the same decision principles, small tests, low-cost experiments, and short commitments apply across life areas. Cross-pollination of ideas creates clever options. A practical method is to use 3 columns: conventional, creative, and hybrid. Fill each column during brainstorming. Conventional holds obvious choices. Creative holds wild ones. Hybrid mixes elements of both. Hybrids are powerful because they respect constraints while adding novelty. For example, a hybrid might be take a 6-month sabbatical while consulting remotely. The combination keeps income while allowing exploration. When you have many options, use elimination rather than selection. Ask, which options fail my non-negotiable values? Remove them first. Then ask, which options cost more than I can afford emotionally or financially? Cross out those 2. This pruning leaves a manageable set to evaluate. The act of elimination feels easier than choosing from a large unfiltered list. Stories can help. Consider Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx. She started with a simple problem and generated unusual options by asking what clothing manufacturers would never suggest. She tested prototypes herself and iterated. Her openness to creative options led to a product category no one expected. The lesson is that creativity often converts overlooked problems into large opportunities. If you fear analysis paralysis from endless options, set a structured cap. Keep the brainstorm to 20 ideas and then stop. If nothing in the 20 works, pause and do something else. The limit forces quality rather than endless searching. Also, involve others selectively. A fresh perspective can reveal options you missed. Choose people who will push you to create, rather than only critique. Ask them for 3 unusual ideas and 1 practical next step. Their constraint of producing 3 ideas often leads them to break typical patterns. Finally, test options cheaply. Build a landing page, create a small prototype, or have a 1-hour conversation in the field. Small tests convert theoretical options into real feedback. This feedback often reveals subtle costs and benefits you cannot see in thought experiments. Practice a short exercise now. Set a timer for 15 minutes and generate 20 options for a current decision. Use the 3 columns method. Then, eliminate options that fail one non-negotiable value. Keep the top 3 and plan one small test for each. Creative option generation is a skill that becomes faster and more reliable with use. In the next chapter, we will look at how to evaluate those options with a simple scoring system that keeps decisions practical and human. Chapter 6. Evaluate with a simple scoring system, matrix, and probability. Once you have a few strong options, the next step is evaluation. Analysis need not be complex. A simple, consistent method often outperforms elaborate models because it keeps judgment visible and accountable. Use a few clear criteria connected to your values, assign scores, and consider probabilities. This method helps you make fair comparisons and reduces emotional bias. Begin by selecting 3 to 5 evaluation criteria that matter most. These should come from your values and practical constraints. For example, if you are choosing between job offers, your criteria might be alignment with values, income stability, learning potential, commute time, and culture fit. Keep criteria simple and distinct. Overlapping criteria confuse the scoring. Next, assign weights to each criterion. Weights reflect importance. If learning potential matters twice as much as commute time, give learning a weight of 2 and commute a weight of 1. Simple weights like 1, 2, and 3 work well. The point is not mathematical precision but honest prioritization. You are making your values explicit. Now score each option on each criterion using a scale, such as 1 to 10. Multiply each score by its weight and add the results for a total score. The option with the highest score is your data-based recommendation. This process forces you to quantify implicit feelings and makes the trade-offs visible. Often, seeing numbers on a page reduces the emotional fog, but numbers alone can mislead. We must also think in probabilities. Ask, how likely is each outcome to occur? If an option has a huge upside but only a 1% chance of success, its expected value might be small. Conversely, a modest but highly probable gain can be the wiser choice. For instance, starting a business might promise great returns, but if your probability estimate is low, mixing in steady income with part-time entrepreneurship could be smarter. Use probability-weighted thinking gently. You do not need complex models. For each option, write down one sentence estimating the most likely outcome and its downside. For example, if I take job A, most likely I will learn new skills and earn 10% more in 2 years. Downside is a 50-minute commute. This narrative adds context to the numbers. Real stories illustrate this. Consider a manager who had to choose between promoting an internal candidate and hiring externally. The internal person scored well on culture fit and company knowledge, but had less experience with a key skill. Using a weighted matrix, the manager quantified each criterion and added a probability note. The internal hire had a 70% chance to ramp up in 6 months with coaching. The numbers and probabilities made the choice clearer and allowed a plan for development if the internal person was chosen. Beware of false precision. Your weights and scores are estimates. Use them as guidance, not gospel. The main benefit of this system is clarity, not mathematical certainty. The act of writing down your reasoning reduces bias and makes future learning possible. When decisions go well or poorly, revisit your matrix and see where your estimates were wrong. This practice turns decisions into experiments. There's also a mental trick called anchoring with a baseline. Choose a baseline option, perhaps your current situation, and score it. Then compare other options against this baseline. This method prevents the mistake of assuming every choice must be better than a romantic idea of changing everything. Sometimes, the best decision is small improvement over baseline. A useful variation for fast choices is a 2-minute matrix. Pick 3 criteria and score each option on a 1-5 scale. Multiply by simple weights and pick the top scorer. For high-stakes decisions, expand to 5 criteria and add probability notes. The tool scales with time and consequence. Finish this chapter by making a real matrix. Choose a current decision, list 3 to 5 criteria, weight them, and score each option. Then write 1 sentence estimating the most likely outcome for each option. This small effort will make trade-offs visible and reduce regret because you recorded your reasoning. In the next chapter, we will discuss a different lens: regret minimization and worst-case analysis, a method that helps you accept risk with dignity. Chapter 7. Use regret minimization and worst-case thinking. Regret plays a powerful role in decision-making. We often ask, which option will I regret more? Jeff Bezos famously used regret minimization. He imagined himself in old age and chose the path that would leave him with fewer lifelong regrets. This method is practical because it frames decisions in terms of long-term meaning rather than short-term fear. Start with a simple exercise. For a decision you face, imagine yourself 20 or 30 years in the future. Look back and ask which choice you would regret not trying. Sometimes the answer is obvious. This long view reduces the weight of short-term discomfort and highlights choices aligned with your deepest values. Regret minimization is particularly useful for opportunities that are time-sensitive. If an opportunity will not present itself again, asking whether you will regret missing it can cut through paralysis. For example, travel chances, scholarship windows, or a fleeting job offer may require this lens. But remember that not every decision needs the regret test. Use it for choices tied to your long-term identity and life story. Pair regret minimization with worst-case thinking. Worst-case thinking is not pessimism, it is planning. Ask, what is the worst realistic outcome, and can I survive it? If the answer is yes, your fear is manageable. For example, if you worry about starting a small side business and imagine bankruptcy, ask whether you could return to your current role or find temporary work if needed. Often, the worst-case scenario is painful but solvable. A historical example helps. When airline pilots train for rare emergencies, they run through worst-case scenarios. This practice does not make them anxious. It prepares them. You can do the same for life decisions. Listing worst-case outcomes and the steps to recover reduces fear and increases action. Write down the 3 worst things that could happen and 3 recovery actions for each. This exercise gives clarity and builds resilience. Another helpful technique is to distinguish between regret and shame. Regret is the feeling that you missed an opportunity. Shame is the worry about what others will think. Regret minimization focuses on your future self, not on public opinion. Often, decisions paralyzed by shame are not worth the price of inaction. Favor the regret question over the reputation question. Let me share a short story. A friend named Thomas was offered a chance to study abroad for a year. He worried about his job and family responsibilities. Using regret minimization, he asked whether he would regret not going at age 80. He concluded he would. Then he listed the worst-case outcomes: job loss, loneliness, and planned recovery steps like remote interviews and weekly calls home. The plan made the risk manageable, and the experience transformed his life. Worst-case thinking also pairs well with limiting loss. If the worst outcome includes financial pain, set a budget or emergency fund that contains the downside. If the worst outcome risks relationships, set clear time boundaries and promises. Controlling the magnitude of potential harm is empowering and often makes the decision obvious. Finally, accept that some regret is inevitable. This truth is freeing because it lowers the bar for perfection. You cannot avoid every mistake, and trying to do so wastes time and energy. Instead, Aim for choices that minimize lifelong regret and that give you clear recovery paths if things go wrong. This balance between aspiration and contingency builds long-term confidence. Practice by taking one current decision and running both tests. Imagine your 80-year-old self and list worst-case outcomes with recovery steps. Notice how these perspectives change your feelings. Often the choice becomes simpler. Either the regret is intolerable and you act, or the worst case is manageable and you act. That clarity is the essence of confident decision-making. In the next chapter, we will see how small experiments reduce uncertainty and turn decisions into learning. Chapter 8. Test with small experiments and reversible steps. One of the most powerful habits for confident choices is treating decisions as experiments. When you test an idea cheaply and quickly, you convert uncertainty into information. Experiments reduce the cost of being wrong and increase the speed of learning. The goal is to seek data before making irreversible moves. Start with the concept of reversibility. Some decisions are easily reversible. Trying a new hobby, switching software, or taking a short course. Others are costly to reverse. Selling a house or having a child. For reversible decisions, favor speed and short tests. For costly decisions, design a sequence of reversible steps that build toward the final choice. A story helps. Consider a designer who wanted to start a freelance business but feared he would miss the security of a steady salary. He began with a small experiment, 1 day per week of freelance work while keeping his job. Within 3 months, he had clients and steady income. This reversible step reduced risk and gave him confidence to expand. That staged approach turns a scary leap into manageable steps. Design experiments with clear success criteria. Instead of vague goals like see if it works, set a measurable outcome. Get 3 paying clients in 2 months, or build a prototype with 10 users. Clear criteria tell you when to scale up or stop. This discipline prevents endless tinkering and aligns experiments with real-world results. Use the low-effort test principle. Find the smallest action that will reliably test the core assumption of your decision. If your assumption is that people will pay for a coaching program, create a simple landing page and request signups before building the course. If you assume a job role will be fulfilling, request a 1-week trial project or a shadowing session. Low-effort tests save time and reveal truth. Real-world examples abound. Many successful startups use the minimum viable product concept. Build the simplest version of a product that can test customer demand. This idea applies to life choices too. Want to move to a new city? Try a week-long trip and temporary housing before relocating permanently. Want to write a book? Publish a short series of essays and measure response before committing years. Plan for learning, not for proof. Experiments are about gaining information that reduces uncertainty. They are not meant to confirm your bias. Approach tests with curiosity. What did you learn, and how will you change your next step? Keep a short experiment journal. Record the plan, the result, and the lesson. This habit creates a feedback loop that steadily improves your choices. Also, use premortems as part of your experimental design. Before you test, imagine the experiment failed and ask why. This thought exercise uncovers weak assumptions and suggests guardrails. If you test a side business and foresee failure due to lack of time, plan specific time blocks for work. Premortems are a simple way to strengthen experiments and avoid obvious mistakes. Small experiments also reduce regret because they are reversible. If you try something and it fails, the disappointment is smaller and the lesson is valuable. The habit of trying small steps builds boldness over time. One experiment leads to another, and gradually you make bigger choices with more confidence and clearer evidence. Finish this chapter by designing a simple experiment for a decision you face. Write 1 sentence that states the test, the success criterion, and a timeline. Keep it small, reversible, and cheap. Run the test and then record one clear lesson. This practice turns fear into curiosity and creates momentum. In the next chapter, we will learn how to commit and create rituals that prevent second guessing after you decide. Chapter 9. Commit, communicate, and build decision rituals. After you decide, the hardest part is often sticking with it. Second guessing, outside pressure, and new information can pull you back into doubt. Commitment and ritual guard against this drift. When you commit publicly and create small rituals, you reduce the mental friction of following through. Start with public commitments. Telling one trusted person about your decision increases accountability. This does not mean broadcasting to everyone. Choose a person who understands your values and supports growth. A public promise, even to a single friend, creates a social stake that helps you follow through. Commitment devices are another tool. These are simple barriers or incentives that make undesired actions harder and desired actions easier. One classic example is setting up automatic transfers to savings so you cannot spend that money. Another is scheduling deep work blocks on your calendar and marking them as non-negotiable. Commitment devices exploit your future self's preferences and reduce the chance of backsliding. Rituals are daily or weekly patterns that make decisions automatic. If you decide to write a book, a ritual could be writing 300 words every morning. The ritual reduces the need to decide each day. You simply show up and do the task. Over time, rituals build momentum and reduce regret because action compounds. Use implementation intentions to make rituals stick. Implementation intentions are if-then plans. For example, if it is 8 a.m., then I will write for 30 minutes. This simple plan ties behavior to context and removes ambiguity. Many studies show that implementation intentions dramatically increase follow-through. Communication matters too. When you make a choice that affects others, explain your decision clearly and kindly. People often react negatively to decisions that surprise them. A thoughtful explanation reduces conflict and helps you maintain relationships. For example, if you choose to work remote 3 days a week, explain to your partner and team how this aligns with your values and what you will do to stay connected. The explanation builds trust and reduces second guessing. There is power in ritualizing review. Make a habit of reviewing major decisions at fixed intervals: 1 month, 3 months, and 1 year. In each review, ask what changed, what you learned, and what you will adjust. These reviews are not about guilt. They are about learning and adaptation. When you structure review into your calendar, it becomes part of the decision process rather than a reactive act of doubt. Real-world leaders use these practices. Successful CEOs often have daily rituals, early exercise, morning review, focused work blocks that support decision consistency. The rituals protect time for strategic thinking and reduce reactive choices. You can use similar patterns for your life. Prepare for doubt by naming it. When you commit, acknowledge that doubt will come and plan a ritual for dealing with it. For instance, if you worry about a new business, plan to check metrics weekly and call a mentor monthly. This ritual channels doubt into structured reflection rather than paralyzing fear. Finally, celebrate decisions. Small, meaningful celebrations mark progress and build positive reinforcement. A brief note to yourself, a small reward, or a shared dinner honors the courage it took to choose. Celebration makes future choices easier because your brain learns that deciding well leads to positive outcomes. Practice by picking a recent decision and creating a 1-week ritual to support it. Announce the decision to one supportive person. Set one small commitment device, and plan a short review in 7 days. These habits will build over time and convert confident choices into steady progress. In the next chapter, we will explore how to learn from outcomes and build long-term decision confidence. Deciding with confidence is a skill, not a trait. It grows when you clarify values, frame choices, limit noise, generate options creatively, evaluate simply, consider regret realistically, Run small tests, commit through rituals, and learn over time. Each chapter in this framework is a practical step you can use today. Remember, the goal is not perfect choices. The goal is clear, aligned action that creates learning and reduces lifelong regret. Start small. Name your top 3 values. Frame one current decision into a 90-day experiment. Set a deadline and run a tiny test. Record what you learn. If you practice these steps, you will make better choices faster and carry less regret. You will also improve your English listening. These scripts are written in clear, friendly language for learning and growth. If you found this helpful, subscribe to BetterSelf for more lessons that build both your language and your life skills. Take one confident step today. You don't need to be perfect. You only need to start.